Welcome to Illinois Lawmakers' weekly coverage of the spring session of the Illinois General Assembly during the month of May. I'm Jack Titchener. Alongside is Amanda Vinicky, the Statehouse Bureau Chief for Illinois Public Radio. Amanda, this week a couple of developments. School funding reform moved in the Senate on pretty much a party line vote. It's over here in the House. What happens next?
So what happens next, we will have to wait and see, but it isn't looking good. You're not hearing a lot of applause from the ranks of representatives that they are embracing the plan. We are hearing talk that maybe the House will come up with its own method for funding schools, perhaps merge that with an evidence-based formula that has been promoted. That's something that the Rauner administration appears to like. They're really big on data and proof that, whatever is working is what they want to fund. So this is very significant because there had been a lot of talk that, especially the Senate president, wouldn't want to fund schools, period, unless the way that Illinois does it is changed.
Mm-hmm. And another item this week that may move, at least it's picking up some momentum, is something on the order of $700 million for human services agencies. What is it, about 46% of their budget?
Exactly. So still not half, and that's just for fiscal year 16. So what I found really remarkable in talking with the Democratic sponsor of that legislation was we start all over for the new year. That's what's supposed to be accomplished by the end of this month without new revenue. So only less than 50% of what they'd been expected. Many of these agencies have contracts for this work that they've already and have been performing for nearly a year now. So definitely a stopgap, something that they say would really stop the bleeding. But in cases there have already been layoffs and a rollback of services programs that have closed. So this would be something to carry them over while legislators continue their talks, but not fully formed yet. I want to point out real quickly too that part of this deal, it doesn't hinge on any money from the state's general bank account.
Right.
So basically it's like they've balanced numbers on paper, but that is what has allowed Democrats and Republicans to get on board, and Democrats say it doesn't include Rauner's turnaround agenda.
And that, of course, is still something the governor is really wanting to have front and center before agreeing to new revenues. There is some discussion this week about some numbers that are starting to emerge from those backroom negotiations for the budget.
Exactly. So the quote-unquote budgeteers, kind of a fun word there, of the legislators, the rank and file members that are the ones that get into the nitty-gritty, they appear to have an agreement, at least a loose one, on how much revenue they would need to raise and where they can cut. And there are some pretty significant numbers on both sides there. What doesn't appear to be fully formed or anywhere near it at this juncture is what could be signed on to from lawmakers in terms of this quote-unquote turnaround agenda that would then allow them to have the graces of the governor and the speaker and the Senate president and such to vote on the actual budget figures.
So we're talking somewhere in the range of $5 billion in revenues measured against another $2 billion in cuts. That would get you pretty close to the gap between revenues of $32 billion and spending of around 38, 39.
Exactly, and it appears to have a lot of that. The spending reductions would be in human services when it comes to Medicaid. That's an area where you've heard a lot of talk really from both sides. And kind of, it is notable, of course, that they reached this agreement, but that's what, when you talk to legislators, they say, had you let us just get into the budget, we could have done this. That part isn't the difficult. It is the politics, it is the rest of it.
And my sources say, very cautious to say that this is more of a representation of what's been discussed, and it's a long way from being any kind of agreement.
Long way. That could be in a matter of weeks. It could mean, who knows, until after the election. People are trying to be optimistic, though, and looking at that May 31st deadline.
Got 3 more weeks to go. Thanks, Amanda, very much. Up next on the program, we're going to talk about that school funding reform plan that landed in the Illinois House this week. The Illinois Senate narrowly passed a school funding reform bill this week that would send more money to the state's poor school districts while cutting back on the amount of aid to the wealthier districts in the state. Deputy Senate Majority Leader John Sullivan of Rushville supports the plan. Bloomington Republican Senator Jason Barickman has some problems with the bill. They're both here to talk with us on this edition of Illinois Lawmakers. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's define the problem. We have some districts in the state of Illinois that, because of good property bases, can spend upwards of $30,000 a year on their students, while others in many of the downstate areas are lucky to get to $6,000 a year per pupil, even with state help. Is that a pretty good approximation of it?
Well, I think part of the other problem that was recognized years ago by those on both sides of the aisle is that we have a formula, a mechanism for distributing taxpayer dollars that's broken. It's not getting the dollars to the students in the school districts that need them the most.
Senator?
You know, and it's great that that's the one issue I think that we do agree on, that the current formula, which was created under, Governor Edgar and Democrats and Republicans both, is flawed. It simply isn't working anymore. So what Senator Menard has tried to do with Senate Bill 231 is to base that formula on need instead of prosperity or tax revenue, local tax, property taxes.
How does it do that, Senator Sullivan, in terms of, it's complicated, or otherwise it had been solved years ago?
And I wish Senator Menard was here because he could explain this in much more detail, and perhaps Jason even knows better than I because he's been a part of those whole discussions. But I guess I'm just going to simply say that it's based on poverty, it's based on need, it's based on local resources. So it's a formula that's driven by that, as opposed to sending money to the wealthier districts that, as you said in your opening, some districts spending $30,000 per student. They're receiving state aid. Other districts, including most of mine, are spending in the $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 per student range. So that's what we're trying to do, is just make it more equitable and more fair.
Senator?
Yeah, I think it's, this is one of the most technical issues that the legislature deals with, this complicated formula and how you fix it. But how you fix it is critical, and simply saying, I've got a fix, doesn't necessarily accomplish the goal of addressing the underlying problems that exist. One of the problems with the Menard proposal, which by the way I think is dead on arrival over in the House, that's been made very clear by people like Speaker Madigan. One of the problems of its proposal is that it tries to take those at the top level and push them down, bringing everyone together that way, as opposed to creating a floor that we try to bring school districts up. That's a very important concept that needs to be embraced. And the other is just this notion that injected in this very technical debate about a school formula is the political agenda that some have to bail out the city of Chicago while we wrestle with how you create this new formula.
Republicans argue that one of the problems, as Senator Barickman has just said, is there's a lot more money in this bill for the city of Chicago. I think one form it's $175 million, and if you look at special funds and things like that, it goes up several $100 million or more a year. How does that all play into the equation? The city of Chicago, they've got like a $1.1 billion hole in their budget for the schools.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to look at the downstate schools as well, because they have holes in their budget as well. And I think you have to break it down on a per pupil basis, right? So the Chicago Public Schools has over 350,000 students. Jason and our districts have around 30 to 35,000 students. So you can't look at this. Of course, it's going to take more money for the city of Chicago because there's more students. But if you look at it in my Senate district, under the Menard proposal, the school districts in my Senate district receive $5 million more in revenue that goes out to those districts. Now, that doesn't compare, and if you look at the total number, to what the city of Chicago gets, but if you look at it on a per pupil basis, some of my districts are receiving $400 and $500 and up to $600 more per student. So you can't look at the total, you have to look at the number of students that are being served.
How does it play out in your Senate district around the Bloomington area, Senator?
It's a mixed bag, and I think, if you look at downstate as a whole, you'd say downstate school districts lose under this plan. That's a problem. If I look within my own Senate district that I represent, I've got some winners and some losers. Now, the characterization as winners and losers is kind of a fallacy. When Chicago Public Schools loses enrollment, I think the public and taxpayers expect that they're going to lose state revenue. But again, the problem here is that while there are some school districts around the state who stand to benefit from this formula, written into the law are these special deals, not for downstate districts like those in Senator Sullivan's district, not for those in mine, but for one school district, Chicago Public Schools. And when you look at why everyone has criticized the formula that exists today, the one that we said we all agree is broken, The criticism is that it creates those special deals. And what we need to do is get away from a formula that has special deals, whether it be for Chicago, as it does, or anyone else, and have one formula that's good for all of our students, no matter if they're in Chicago, downstate in districts like ours or elsewhere.
And actually, it doesn't create special deals. Under the current formula, it does keep some of the proposals that are under current law. It actually does away with
special deals, though.
It actually does away with the Chicago
one
block.
at a time.
Sure. It actually does away with the Chicago block grant, which has been one of the complaints of both Democrats and Republicans have had for many years, and it makes that it drives a formula based on need, not on just a lump sum going to a district.
You say it's still in there?
It's still in there, and I get, this is politics, and you're going to have politicians who don't read the bill and explain what's in the bill. But what's in the bill is, and Senator Menard explained it on the floor, he kept the language that's in the formula today. He keeps the Chicago block grant. He might rename it, and that might make people feel better about the fact that they're carving out a special deal for Chicago. But it's still the Chicago block grant. It's still a special deal for Chicago public schools.
And you don't see it that way?
No, it's not. I mean, it's the Chicago block grant was what it referenced. It was a block of money. It was a money given to the district with really not based on any need or numbers or anything. It was just a lump sum given to those districts. To that district, that money now is formula driven based on students.
Were you surprised, as many of us were last week, when the Illinois State Board of Education said, Chicago's in bad shape, but it's not in such a bad shape that the state needs to take over the school system, as Governor Rauner has suggested?
Well, and this goes to the heart of the need to fix the formula. We have downstate schools. We have a school district very close to where I grew up, Streeter, Illinois. Streeter Elementary School is next in line to East St. Louis School District for requiring a state takeover or help. And they're here saying, A, state of Illinois, fund us, fully fund the formula that exists today, and B, if you rewrite the formula, rewrite it in a way that helps districts like us and doesn't just carve out, again, special deals for one school district at the expense of others.
Senator, the governor has proposed increasing the amount of funding to bring fully fund the school aid formula.
Right.
He wants a clean bill to do that. I'm not sensing a whole lot of support for that either, just as there's opposition to the Menard plan.
So, of course, when he talks about fully funding the formula, obviously there's way more losers in my school districts than there are winners. So it doesn't actually, the downstate districts under Governor Rauner's proposal, using the current formula, there's a lot more losers than there are winners. So that formula is broken. I think everybody has admitted that formula. You can't just keep pumping money into a program that's flawed and that isn't working. So that doesn't work.
Interestingly, a group of downstate Democrats in the Statehouse just yesterday or 2 days ago announced that they support the governor's plan to fully fund the formula. Now, I admit there is work that can be done on that formula. I led with the fact that we need to fix that formula, but it's important that we get it right. It's important that we get it right, and to get it right, you're not going to see legislation that's pushed through one legislative chamber on a partisan roll call vote. What you're going to see is both sides coming together and embracing a formula that is good for everyone.
And to go back to the original question there, as far as K-12 funding, K-12 education, I have Western Illinois University in my district. I have 6 community colleges in my district. I support funding education, and when we talk about education, it's not just K through 12, it's early childhood, it's higher education as well. So I'm in support of funding education in its entirety.
At the end of the day, though, we still kind of go back to this argument made some years ago with Senate Bill, I believe it was 750, that you're basing the K through 12 funding on the property tax, and that goes back to the 1880s. Paul Simon, when he was in the legislature here, was writing in 1955 that was a bad idea. Is that ever going to get addressed, Senator Barickman?
Well, it's not going to get addressed in the next 2 weeks. That's clear. And while it is very critical, I think that the state do address this, and I think there's ways that we can find ways to work together on it. What we need to do today is fund our schools. We recognize the massive problems that they face, but let's be clear. If we don't pass a school budget now, those schools aren't going to open in August. And as much as we'd like to tackle all the problems facing the state, what we can't allow to happen is for our school and students to be held hostage while we try to reconcile our differences on these very complex problems.
And I would agree with the fact that if we don't fund K-12 education, schools are not going to open this fall, but that also includes universities in the state. And so we need to look at the entire package. I know the governor has said, you know, he wants a clean bill for K-12. I want a clean bill for education in its entirety.
We're going to talk about that in our next session here on Illinois Lawmakers. We're going to be talking about trying to keep the lights on at those state community colleges and public universities. Gentlemen, thanks very much for your time on Illinois Lawmakers.
Thank you, Jack.
We appreciate it. Joining me now to discuss higher education funding, our Deputy Senate Majority Leader, Donne Trotter of Chicago, who chairs the Senate Appropriations 2 Committee, and Deputy House Republican Leader Dan Brady of Bloomington, the GOP spokesperson on the Higher Ed Appropriations Committee. Gentlemen, good to have you both on the show.
Thank you.
In recent days, there's been some more movement on the funding front for higher education, which had gone without its appropriation, like human services, for the majority of this year. Senator Trotter, in your chamber, the Senate has moved an additional $454 million into the
That's
fund?
correct, and that's $453 million, which is from general revenue funds. So we have advanced the bill that essentially adds on to the bill that we passed and had the governor sign to help fund higher education, raising their percentages all up to approximately 60%.
So that's 60% of the roughly $2 billion that higher education would normally get in a typical fiscal year.
That's correct.
Right?
And it's not just the universities.
Yes.
We also put some more dollars into MAP grants as well. Nothing like having a university with students there. So that was important.
That monetary award program is critical for thousands of young people around the state of Illinois. And so the universities were brought up and community colleges were brought up to roughly, what, 31%
About
with
that.
the earlier bill?
Correct.
How was that received?
Well, I think it was received a little bit tongue-in-cheek as that thank you, but you know we need much more, and we understand that. But I think the overall feeling was this is going to help us through the summer. This is going to get us into in towards the fall when we start getting some more revenues in, meaning the university is getting revenue in from tuition-based, and so that's going to be very helpful to them. It will help in the area of really about the first semester when it comes to MAP grant funding for many of the universities and privates as well as community colleges.
And a lot of the universities around the state, like yours, Illinois State University in Bloomington, fronted that tuition money, not tuition money, but the MAP money at the beginning.
Right. To the tune of about $15 million with Illinois State alone.
Yes, indeed. And now, so you're adding another $454 million to this. The Senate has approved that. Where does the money come from, Senator?
Well, this is general revenue dollars. So we always get dollars into our coffers. So we don't start the year with $33 or $34 billion in the bank. It comes from various taxes that we spend throughout the year, be they sales taxes as well as income taxes and corporate taxes as well.
So this brings it up to roughly 60% funding. So the House hasn't acted on this. When do you expect that to happen in your chamber?
That's a good question. We thought maybe it would have happened by now, but obviously the bill that's now under the direction of Leader Curry means that obviously it's being scrutinized, and there may be some changes to it, which we're hoping for as clean as bill that we can that's come out of the Senate. And you're talking about really loan forgivenesses in a lot of areas of this with the GRF that the senator is referring to. Mm-hmm. But it's something that would be a big step in the right direction for the universities, and it was probably be what was going to be the best for FY16.
We were all very concerned, of course, about the fate of Chicago State University in Chicago. That it looked like that, without that bump in funding, they were going to close their doors at the end of April. And even with the money that they were brought up to 60% because they were in a very difficult situation,
Very precarious situation.
They still had to lay off something like 300 staff.
300. If you want to look at the positive side, and we certainly have to sometimes scurry around to find positive things that's happening in this year's budget cycle, but that meant that at least 600 kept their jobs. So it was that alternative of some cuts, some changes, some adjustments had to be made immediately.
In talking with other lawmakers last week about human services, and that's another component that's moving its way through the place, the sense was, we had no idea that this thing was going to take this long to resolve. And unlike the human services, the universities had a little bit of reserve funding, and they could get by with tuition. What's it been like for your university, Illinois State University, in this situation?
Well, it's been difficult, to say the least, but it's not been as difficult as others, as you mentioned, due to their good stewardship and their management abilities and their reserves. It's different than other universities, and they've been able to navigate through this very difficult, choppy water, to say the least, better than others. But as I was reminded by President Dietz at Illinois State, of course, I can't continue to do this all summer, and that's where the stopgap measure has been helpful.
So, we talked about the staff that have been laid off at Chicago State. That's also happened at Eastern. It's also happened at Western. Community colleges have made cuts. There's also some other collateral damage that's happening. SIU officials in Carbondale were talking about the fact that their enrollment is taking a hit. They don't know how much at this point, but the surrounding states like Missouri, Southeast Missouri State, Indiana, Murray State, and Kentucky are making a run on Illinois students.
Absolutely.
Right. It's the confidence of the parents and of the students. One, that the school is going to be open, and if it's going to be open, that the classes that they need to graduate in their various disciplines are actually there for them to take. And there are, by the standards, national standards, you have to have X amount of classes in this discipline if you attain this certain degree.
That comes down to accreditation issues.
Accreditation
right?
is also one as well.
So has ISU had the same problem with enrollment because of this? Or?
They're starting to see that. I think every university, private, public, and all in higher education are going to see numbers that are going to be very concerning to them as we get further into the summer months here of what their fall semester is going to look like because of the uncertainty, as has been alluded to here by Senator Trotter.
Has the agreement that you've come up with in the Senate and that passed on broadly bipartisan basis over there, it's expected to be embraced over here as well if it's a clean bill, as you say. Is that kind of a bridge to a fiscal 2016-17 budget? That kind of bipartisanship, there's been some optimism expressed by the governor and various leaders around the building?
Well, I think it is, and I think if anything, House and or Senate, it's been driven by rank and file representatives and senators that have come together from both sides of the party to move funding in this way out the door and be able to bring in the governor's office and the governor to sign something that says, here's where the money is, here's tangible funds, here's how we're coming up with funding stopgaps or the other measure that's come out of the Senate lately. And I think that's not only what we feel good about in this very turbulent time, but that's what the people want to see is more cooperation of getting some things done.
Are you seeing the same kind of thing?
Yes, that's our job. As legislators, as defined, it is our job, one, to appropriate dollars to help make our state much more viable so we can enhance and enrich the quality of life people that we serve. And we're trying to do our job by doing that.
As an Appropriations Committee Chairman, you are one of the so-called budgeteers, the budget experts that get together. And in recent weeks, you've been meeting with your colleagues from both sides of the aisle. The governor's office has been in there. I understand you're making some progress. You're getting ready to give them a package.
Well, the best progress was, one, is that we're talking. That's where most things start with a conversation. So yes, we are all in the room and we're having those conversations of what's important, what is key to move our state forward, and at this juncture also to stabilize it so we can have a strong push forward.
So are you what are the specific numbers you're looking at in terms of what revenues have got to be and what cuts have got to be? Because it's going to have to be a combination of both.
But without question. And I can say that on my side, we realize there's some structural things have to be done as well. We don't just keep on doing the same work that we've been doing and not addressing some of those things that can bring in some kind of cost savings. So bringing dollars in, we certainly realize that we do need more revenues, specifically because our liabilities have become so great.
If you look at the gap between revenue and spending right now, because most of the budget is kind of going out the door on autopilot. It's about $7 to $9 billion. Is that kind of the figure you're shooting at? Because you've got $32 billion in revenue and roughly $38 billion in spending. So a combination of revenue enhancements or revenues and cuts to come up with that figure?
Correct, without question. We are looking at numbers now of maybe $5 billion in new revenues and possibly $2 billion in some kind of cuts.
Can you be specific about where those revenues would come from? The obvious question is, are you going to raise the income tax back up, or is that on the table?
Everything is on the table. So I don't want to get into specifics right now because the conversations are still in their infancy of getting together. Right. So until we can get some kind of a further mindset of where our leaders want to go, I would like to remain.
Are you sharing some of the optimism, both of you, that the governor said that you might be able to get this done by the end of May?
I think that's extremely optimistic. I would say that what's missing in all of our conversation is what the governor will be able to say in a turnaround agenda of some components of a budget, what was able to be secured by the administration, and that's a big question.
Will he get some of that, Senator?
I think so. I believe so, because that's those are going to be all the components to make this work, and everything has to happen.
Senator Trotter, Representative Brady, thanks very much. It's always good to hear from both of you.
Thank
and
you.
Good to hear that there might be something happening here at the Capitol finally. That is it for this edition of Illinois Lawmakers. We'll be back this time next week for continuing coverage of the Illinois General Assembly during the month of May.